morning. Hope you guys are doing well. Happy Tuesday. It's Claretha here at Everyday Enlightenment at 11:11. And today I'm going to talk about reacting versus responding. Okay, so we are very quickly approaching the holiday season, which means we're spending more time with coworkers, we're spending more time with family, a lot in closed quarters. And so this can be a very intense time of year for a lot of people. Hi, Carrie. So I'm talking about reacting versus responding. And so, yeah, as we spend more time with family members, things can feel a little intense with coworkers. Some, you might get along with great, others maybe not so much. So I really wanted to speak into this today because I think it's a really important topic as just in general, but as we start to, spend time with some people. So the first thing I want to emphasize is that your emotions do not dictate how you respond. Okay, so I'm going to say that again. Your emotions do not dictate how you respond. And so notice that I'm not saying that to not feel your emotions or not acknowledge your emotions, because I think that is like very important. As Lizzo says, baby, how you feeling? So really important to acknowledge how you feel, especially emotional triggers. However, I think it's really important to distinguish where you're reacting versus responding, especially in sticky situations. So when we react, oftentimes it is a very instinctual type of thing where there's just like words that get bubbled up out of your mouth and then they disappear into the ether. And reacting can feel very instinctual. It can feel very primitive, and it's almost like your subconscious mind just kind of like out there in the open, right? And so there's no filter. And when this happens, things can get a little sticky. And oftentimes when we react, it can feel very tense and aggressive. And so generally, for this reason, I think it's like termed okay when we react in more positive scenarios, like a surprise party or hearing good news. Like those, when we like have a natural reaction to that, it's usually positive, so that's like accepted well, versus when we react in a negative way, it's not received so great, right? So gut reactions get a little tricky, especially when circumstances aren't great, and things get intense, because oftentimes when you're angry or you're irritable, things fly out of your mouth and bam, like the damage is done. And whether it's like speaking with a loved one, sending an email, hitting send on an email too fast. I mean, who hasn't done that? Thank God Google has that like 15-second, like you can undo your email send. But like before that happened, like we've all sent an email in a reactionary way too fast, right? So, and also just like, we've all been on the phone with customer service when things aren't going so well. So I think everybody's had a, driving in traffic, like, I'm totally guilty of that. So, oh, thanks, Elodie. I'm glad you like the subject. So reacting versus responding is a very important conversation that we need to have with other people, but also that you need to know just for yourself and how you navigate your world and your relationships, whether it's work relationship, love relationship, family relationships. Like this can apply to all aspects of your life. So responding, on the other hand, versus reacting is very calm. Responding is non-threatening, and responding is a more thoughtful way of approaching a response. And so my recommendations, I'm going to give you 3 recommendations when it comes to reacting versus responding. So my first recommendation for learning how to respond to a scenario versus react is to just take some time, take a couple minutes, whether it's a minute, whether it's 5 minutes, whether it's just like one breath, just like give it a little bit of space, because that little bit of space gives you time to be present, and it kind of stops like you realize like how you're really feeling, but that little bit of space gives you distance from the experience. And so you can really observe your thoughts and figure out, even in a couple seconds, like what would be a better response versus like maybe the gut reaction. Okay, so I hope that makes sense. The second tip I have for you guys to respond versus react is to position your message. Okay, and by that I mean to consider the party or the person on the other side of the conversation and get in their shoes a little bit. Try to understand a little bit more about their perspective and their point of view, because this will help to give you the words or the mindset or like the argument, depending on the situation, to use in your response in a way that they can hear you better. Like a lot of times I tell my patients, like sometimes when you're trying to get a point across, like somebody, they just don't have the ears to hear it. And so by positioning your message and like finding a way to meet them where they can hear you is really important to get that connection, so you can have that understanding and form like a foundation that like you're both trying to work towards the same thing, or maybe different things, but that they can kind of hear your need and really understand what you're asking for. Okay. And then the third thing that hey Pops. And then the third thing that I want to speak into when we should be responding versus reacting is to stay in integrity with yourself. And so whatever the goal is for the interaction that you're in, or the situation or the scenario that you're in, I want to remind you to pay attention to what is true for you, because only you know your heart, and you get to put boundaries around what it is that you need or what you're asking for. And so, oftentimes we do have to, we live in a society with other people, so we do have to compromise. There is that compromise that's needed. However, there are ways to stay in integrity with yourself and stay in your power that still allows you to work with other people, whether it's coworkers or family, or, walking down the street, sharing a train car with other people. So there are always ways to stay in integrity with yourself, but also, be flexible to a certain extent. So you're the one that gets to decide how to do that. So I hope that was helpful for you guys today, giving you guys a few tips about reacting versus responding, trying to understand the difference. Excuse me. And so the 3 tips that I gave you were to slow down. Number 1, always a good idea. Take a breath and position your message and stay in integrity with yourself. So this is a practice. This isn't anything that you are just gonna like download and know right away. It's like a muscle. So it takes practice, so you get to practice it all the time with your kids, with your, everybody, clients, coworkers. So be gentle with yourself and just take a pause and ask yourself, am I reacting or am I responding? And so as you learn how to respond more, or as you learn how to like work that muscle a little bit more, communication becomes a little bit easier. So I hope that was helpful for you guys today. And if you have any questions or have any practices that you use to respond versus react, I would love to hear them, because I'm practicing too. So I hope you guys have a great week, and I will see you next week, Tuesday at 11:11. Take care.